Друзья, всем привет. Мы подошли к финальному нашему.
Okay, let's try again. It's our final speech.
Сегодня у нас произойдет путешествие.
Today we'll be kind of
Кибербезопасность.
considering the results-oriented cybersecurity. Roman Shapiro, the CISO of the Russian Post, will talk about this journey. Well, hello, colleagues. I'm kind of inspired. The weather is so good and sunny, and those kiosks, there are so many interesting things, but you're still sitting here in this room expecting something from me. Well, I don't know who you are, I don't know why they came, but I will have to share with you kind of the light of knowledge and popularize your kind of interesting things. So we understand that we don't have too many people, and the camera is facing me, not you. So let me ask you the question: who read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy? Okay, more than I expected. Okay, who understood what was written there? Who liked it?
Вот это вот нормально.
Okay, that's good. That's what I expected.
Мое личное мнение об этом произведении, оно классное. Оно говорит нам примерно следующее.
I believe this is cool, and the message is that the absurd things happening around us, well, it doesn't necessarily prevent us from developing ourselves and our business ideas and so on. On the contrary, it helps us implement our ideas, and thanks to this absurdity, we can do the things we want to do in security. And when we start doing it for the Russian Post, which is a tiny company, isn't it? Okay, a year ago, I was talking about result-oriented cybersecurity, the approaches to implementing this, understanding this, and so on and so forth. And the next year, we were kind of going into this thing. We were looking for phrases, technical requirements. We thought about the presentations, how to cope with this. And we have accumulated quite a lot of experience I wanted to share with you so that you kind of understand how we are going there and how we kind of put in numbers what we had discussed a year ago. I'd like to share Mr. Churchill's kind of phrase. I'll have to explain why many of the things I mentioned a year ago, why many of them are not exactly true or not true exactly. Let's start with this slide. Well, I'm the CISO of Russian Post. Well, Russian Post is not something you imagine it to be. Well, let me ask you a question. Who thinks that Russian Post is the largest IT integrator with a sophisticated business system, high level of centralization, and the use of IT solutions which have never been used by anyone? Okay, less than 2. Okay, great. Okay, what is Russian Post? Russian Post is a huge strategic company. We have 38 postal offices, 150,000 computers, servers, and stuff like that, plus network and equipment. And for sure, the level of resolution is very high. We have 3 data centers, so they don't have any servers in the postal offices in the regions. Everything is managed from the central headquarters. All the systems are managed centrally, and that's how it works. But, well, let's consider some specific cases. Well, to buy one memory stick, which is 1,000 rubles, to have it for every postal office of the country, I will need 40 million. Well, this is a huge organization. We have helicopters, we have planes, we had some boats, we even had a goat, but the goat has passed away, unfortunately. So with all this motley collection, we have to struggle day in, day out. So the hitchhiker's guide, if you remember, you wake up in the morning and here you have a bulldozer just destroying everything. Well, that's our usual morning for the InfoSec Directorate in Russian Post. What I would like to share with you. Well, when your planet is being destroyed, you think about your next destination, and you think about your prospects and how to avoid the collapse kind of falling on your head. If you want to reach your goals and if you want to do it safely, you should follow some approaches. Last year, I was telling you that, okay, we need to find answers to the question, so why are you running there? So maybe you know why, and you are kind of confident that that's where you are going. Okay, then I'll share with you this preliminary stage for the beginning of your journey so that you understand what you should consider so that you kind of take all the things you need when you start running. Okay, to go or not to go, whom to go with. We'll talk about the technical requirements, project management, how to manage the uncertainty, how to manage risks. And I frankly hope that all these things will make you think, even if you're not going to this field of result-oriented cybersecurity. Well, we call it RezBez. And, well, everyone has his or her own understanding of this result-oriented cybersecurity, or RezBez. Okay, shall we go there or not? There are various ways to define RezBez. And if we look at the PhD kind of premises, we have cybersecurity and cyber resilience and whatnot. The idea is like that. We really want, and this is serious, irrespective of some impact, we want to continue our business. And then it can be converted into any way. You could call it unacceptable events. You could call it strategic risks, as business would call it. And you could call it any other way. It doesn't change the essence. So whether you want to be there or not, if you have everything, you've bought a lot of stuff, the processes have been streamlined, everything is cool, but you need some adrenaline, well, that's where you should go. If you have a lot of stuff, but you understand that just having a lot of systems is not enough, and if, God forbid, you have an incident, a security incident, okay, this is your destination. If you like making working systems from scratch, okay, please join us for the journey. Okay, if you have a crazy CISO who is ready to enter this trendy things, saying, okay, everybody is going there, so let me follow. Okay, please come with us. Okay, who shouldn't go there? We have many types of CISO and heads of InfoSec, but if you believe that all integrators, this is a quote, by the way, are greedy, disabled people with two left hands, and that you can do, well, everything with your two FTEs in the field, that's okay. So you might call it RezBez, but don't position it like that. Okay, if you think that this is something to integrate, and you might call it RezBez, you'll get the money, and this will let you move ahead, well, please don't do this. Then if you don't have time, if you don't have money, so if you don't have enough resources and you understand that you will need years of your life to be invested into this, well, most likely you shouldn't go there. Well, this consumes vast amounts of time. And my colleagues who've been dealing with me day in and day out, giving me some pitying looks, they know that this is from dawn to dusk. And the dusk is not the sunset. That's when your boss tells you, well, guys, it's too late. I can't survive it anymore. So you shouldn't go there if you kind of think that it's too easy. No, it is not too easy. Far from it. So if you think that way, it's not your way to go. How shall we go? Why? Why I'm talking about the how? That's because, well, it's taken us a year to get closer to kind of getting there, to cybersecurity. And to get there, we should understand the agreement, how to determine. You remember there's law 223, 44, federal laws, so we're all subject to it. So we know that Russian Post loves Russian regulators and the legal framework of Russia. That's the only way for us to go. So to be there, we should use a lot of resources. And quite often we do this to convert the ideas which are well positioned, so about RezBez, into some words and specifics. And so you start writing these long paragraphs, and then you understand that it's not RezBez anymore. It's law 223 and 44 for you, and the words are not that beautiful anymore. And it is not a RezBez project; it's an integration project. And now you start thinking whether it's that sexy after all. Okay. Contracts. So we should pick the format. And we should understand how we are going to make it there. So this is a big thing, by the way. RezBez will give you the paradigm you want to reach. And you can get there if you signed a contract with a public participant and the only supplier. You can split it into various other parts. You can determine a format. The most important thing is that when you go there, you should remember that if you kind of start in the scattered around approach, you should bring it all together. But if you start as a unified entity, you should understand how you should somehow connect all those kind of loosely connected and contradicting parts. Okay. It sounds great, RezBez, but if you think that a year will be enough for you to quickly get rid of all the problems you have in your organization, especially if you have a lot of legacy in your huge structure, and if you believe that you'll make all this secure, well, no way. You will not run it unless you have a lot of money and resources. Then you will have some other conditions to begin with. Okay, so please keep it in mind. For how long are you going to kind of sign the contract? From dawn to dusk, 1 year, and so on and so forth. Well, this is difficult for the public participants. It's hard to deal with this rolling over contracts, well, come up with stages and so on. Types of the contracts. So you can say we can buy 1, 2, 3, 5, 6 something. Well, this is great, but this way you will kind of restrict yourself by the set of subsystems you consider to be necessary. But if you have in your requirement describe all the functional features of the software you want to buy and all the software hardware suites you want to buy, then you are going to have a set of the things you already know you'll have to deploy. But if you want to have some flexibility and manageability, consider these contracts and agreements in such a way that you could get not a specific solution, but rather any solution to reach your goal in a given sub-project, sub-stage, and so on. Then we'll talk about contractors. Okay, you can start with the basics. One contract, one supplier, no problem. But then you'll be kind of taken hostage by the supplier, and you will believe the guy. Okay, when will he have to do it? Well, when will he have to do it the way he described it in the technical requirements? If you want something you Please remember that we have a consortium. It means that you can use several suppliers who have equal liability. They're responsible for your own element of the infrastructure, and they will have to make this RezBez for you. It looks fine, and this way you might save money or get into a lot of trouble. Our cooperation experience in the country shows that we have quite big and strong companies which could cover all the subsystems of InfoSec, starting with technical requirements going all the way to design and deployment. So they are there, but they're few and far between, and they are in short supply. Anyway, and then several suppliers. You should remember that if you want to build a system, something which will guarantee the result for you, so please don't limit yourself to a given integration approach. So somebody buys NDZ and the firewall and many to any rules and so on. And there are many of them, and they all provide all the ISS necessary following the regulatory requirements. But you are focused on the results, right? So we don't think that any too many is the rule you want to use. But, well, you should try to avoid this trap. This is a difficult thing. Okay, trading. The initial maximum price of the contract. Here you are in a disadvantage. Okay, well, how much will we have to pay for this or for this? Okay, how much will it cost to buy some firewall? Okay, that's clear. Okay, if you want to buy a subsystem which will let me be a cyber resolutive with cyber immunity, well, people say, well, don't know. And then you have a fork. Either it will be overpriced, either people will come to you and tell you that it's so cheap that we don't even know. Maybe there are some students of university where they do it for their thesis, then the price might be different. So you should know whom you deal with when you determine the maximum price of the contract. Well, it should be in line with the legal requirement. It should be clear enough so that people don't make a mistake. Remember item 119 of the Presidential Decree as of 1995. We all remember about the criminal code, right? We respect the Russian legal framework in terms of protecting different types of data, restricted data and information. Let's remember that we have it, and you should keep it in line if you discuss a comprehensive project. A comprehensive project will have to adhere to the requirements of the regulators. Okay, Law 223 and Law 44. You might really desire or earn for your results, but this should be in line with the legal requirements. And if you cannot describe it properly, come to us. We'll tell you about our body of knowledge so that we satisfy the requirements of the state, so that we anyway get what we need. Okay, you have come up with your ideas, you have convinced the decision makers, you have even determined the initial maximum price for the contract, but for this you need the technical requirements. Okay, so it's really mandatory, otherwise you are prone to mistakes. Okay, we do remember and we have discussed for years that technical requirements are important and necessary. Without technical requirements, where you have when we are on the same page, then you might have different results and so on and so forth. That's why I limit myself to the things which are mandatory there. Something you should never forget about. This will help you get the results you want.
Мы долго думали, как же это записать, потому что это долго, сложно, большое. Вам надо понимать одно. Вы никогда не...
Well, this takes time, and this is difficult, but you should remember, you'll never develop technical requirements which would satisfy all the requirements of the Russian law.
что можно только на
and at the same time
3 лет.
kind of be future-proof for the next 3 years, to exclude all the uncertainties we have from the
Чтобы
outset.
было полноценным, внятным и полезным.
And you should also remember that it should be full-fledged, clear and useful. Just imagine 400 pages for every subsystem. You have, I don't know how many subsystems you are going to have, say 30 of them.
Считай, 400
Just multiply 400 by 30,
систем, получается много.
it's a lot.
Написать такое техническое задание сразу тяжело.
Drafting this kind of technical requirements
Мы
from your first try would be next to impossible. So we believe that the most important thing here is to describe how we are going to accept, how we are going to generate requirements, how we will kind of
функциональным характеристикам
follow up
уже только
on your sequence of tasks, and only then we'll talk about some details and number of pages. So ideally, your technical requirements document should let your contractor or contractors clearly understand that they should do their job
вас
so that you're happy as a customer and that they deliver what they promise in a guaranteed way. And contractors should understand how it should be done, not only what, but how.
всего должно описывать.
I would think that this document, in this case, should describe this kind of approaches. What you should never forget about.
В итоге,
So what do you want as a final result? So how do you want it done?
точно гарантировать
What should be guaranteed and delivered so that you get your hands on this and report on this? We remember that
результат это должен быть
RezBez is about results, and these results should be also verified by various supervisors. So the results you get, considering all the uncertainty you have, these results should satisfy all the supervisors and watchdogs. We have a lot of them. So please remember about the regulators and watchdogs
и посмотреть.
so that they might have a look at what you get and whether it's in line with what you have in your technical requirements document. Even if you say that your cart will have 3 wheels, this cart with 3 wheels should be in line, strictly in line with your technical requirements documents.
Реализации проекта. Я вот прямо здесь
We also need the metrics, management metrics, that by the determined project implementation entities. Okay, so you will try to kind of,
нужно точно понимать, насколько мелкими эти куски
so you will make some steps along the way, and you should determine how small they will be. So I mean, these steps. So if you think that 400 acceptance sessions will be fine, why not? Or maybe you should accept it once, and that's also fine. Also, the mechanisms and ways to do it. You can say honestly about, okay, we want design, we want 2 lines for deployment. Okay, they will design and deploy also with these 2 lines. And it will be difficult to say that it's not right, because we all follow the Russian legal framework and so on and so forth. And so what you have in the technical requirements, that's what you finally get.
это формировать.
Okay, how are we going to draft it? So we should have the image of your desired outcome. What will you need? You'll need the terms and definitions.
Классно написать.
Why so? Well, it's cool to say that we want to have cyber resilience in our organization. Our information systems should provide cyber immunity, and they should be vendor agnostic, and so on and so forth. But when in your technical requirements, they will ask you to explain it to everybody what cyber immunity is. Well, I don't know how much time you'll have to invest into defining this. You'll start with biology, then you'll add cyber to this natural biology, and so on and so forth. And this is not easy. One more thing, this is a standalone case.
RezBez
If your RezBez
навести порядок.
lets you clear up the mess, not only for yourself as the InfoSec guy, but for joining guys too, then you will win kind of
Появятся те разделы,
allies or enemies. So if you have the terms and definitions which will help your accountants or anybody kind of clarify all the kind of stock taking system for your motley collection. They have many systems. So, or if you want to somehow condense it to something you can capitalize, for instance, if the capex and opex in your company is split. So to properly kind of keep track of this, you will find your best allies who will help you now and again, and many times over. So please remember about this.
здесь же 100%.
And again,
Можете прописать
here you can describe the things which will let you avoid some litigation issues. When you upgrade software, for instance, you have there some requirements, so you'll have to get the permission from the rights owner for update, or you'll have to say that we don't change the code, and you can kind of
задачи.
defend yourself from some complaints. Okay, please formulate a goal in the terms of RezBez. If you say to introduce 5 information security systems and then you give the list, this integration has nothing to do with RezBez. And if you say that you want to have a resilient system which will kind of fight back the attacks, and if you use some other terms, and if you follow the SMART methodology, measurable and so on and so forth, right? This is great. But if you put this in the technical requirements document, and if it is long and everything described there should focus on the goal, then you should invest a lot into the goal. Okay, please remember, we are talking about the result, RezBez, right? So if you say that we don't want to be hacked, well, 100%, okay, you can put it down, but how to deliver this, how to measure this, I don't know. I think there would be some foolhardy guys who will help you do it, but I think it will require a lot of effort. And just again, we respect the regulator in the InfoSec field. This is not paper security. Paper security should help the results. Yeah, okay, it sounds great, doesn't it? So don't ignore the regulator's requirement, okay? And if in RezBez we bring together the requirements of the regulator and requirements and make the paper security kind of result-driven, do it and add some specific language to your technical requirements for this. That's great. Okay, what should we add to this list? So, in your RezBez work, you don't just buy ISS. Otherwise, you would just buy NSD, antivirus, cryptography protection, a firewall, and maybe you would even buy the IDS. And everything will be there, everything will be cool, and taken together it will work fine. But that's not what we are talking about. You're not just following the regulator's requirements. You go further and you want cyber immunity.
So you got to remember that this not only includes the security tools, but also the processes that operate those systems. If you don't have, pardon me, the understanding of what's happening in your perimeter, then perhaps you shouldn't be saying that your perimeter is protected. If you don't understand what assets you are protecting, then it's not very clear what you are protecting altogether. Remember that the process of implementing amendments throughout the lifetime of your contract or contract's implementation in cybersecurity is a separate process. And a process approach. Well, recently we talked to people from SOAR. If you don't understand what processes are in SOAR, then you probably don't need SOAR. If you don't need SOAR, then perhaps it's too early for you to go into RezBez. If you think that that's it, it's not. Absolutely, you need to
отчетной документации.
write what will be in your reporting documentation and how it should be implemented. If you would only say that you need the technical requirements and that's it, I will give you a one-pager that has technical requirements on it, and then a few more sheets with one paragraph on each. That would be in full compliance with your so-called technical requirements. So if you want to have real substance, please don't be lazy and write what that substance is going to be and how you're going to operate it. And the lifetime will be different, whether a timed license or an eternal license.
Можно написать, что это фиксированное значение.
You could have a certain value, or you could have a certain value plus a particular data. How would you leverage collective obligations? When do they arise? Say at implementation, you buy certain software, but you buy it not from day one, but only after the technical requirements have been developed. The design has been done with selection of the appropriate solution, and only after that, when you have the guarantee, just think about how you write it. Otherwise, your guarantee or warranty will be 36 months, and it will start on day one and will end at the time the contract is implemented. If you write it well, then it will start at design, and it will end a good period after delivery.
Так, чтобы вы потом получили нечто работающее.
So remember, how do you write it in such a way so that you get something that is working? If you write a CM, if you buy a CM, an EDR, and a sandbox, please think how they should work together. How would you work with a contractor to hold them accountable for making it work? It's good when you have one ecosystem, you have another ecosystem, you have a third ecosystem, and a platform, and it works well. But you wanted it to be not a platform, but individual elements that each of them individually working very well. Please make sure that they would work together from day one, at the time that you formulate the functional requirements to that system. Project management. It so happens that I have a Master of Science in project management. I have done quite a lengthy training, and I've done some in-field training as well. I think that a project manager in any country makes more than $1,000. And why? Because that's a person who would most likely ensure that you'd do your race from the beginning to end. And imagine that we are doing a race in cybersecurity. We do have a lot, but how do we reflect all of this in the technical requirements? That is important. Remember what it is that you will need to ensure that they work together. Contractors and subcontractors. And if you don't think of it up front, it may be quite a large number because there are many ISSs, there are many vendors, etc. Your internal guys, your internal teams, InfoSec, IT, you can't do without IT. What if you have some special secrecy teams? Access control, SCADA, business owners, scary people that are not particularly concerned about anything, but they want to make sure that everything is right. You've got economics, finance, you've got HR, you've got legal. All of these elements would still be there when you implement the project. They would either be your allies or your adversaries, and you would never be able to submit your report to accounting when an old accountant sits in front of you and explains to you something and you don't quite understand what they're telling you, but you understand that they would not put the stamp on your report. You would be cursing the day when you didn't write a good technical assignment. Project management system
непосредственно в техническом задании
This is
требования,
the
почему
only thing that I think you may not include in the technical requirements, because it is up to you, whatever works best for you. It could be on a sheet of paper, it could be in Excel, it could be in a project management system, so wherever is convenient for you. And if you want a contractor to do it, then write technical requirements.
отчетная документация. Очень важная штука.
Reporting,
Очень важная
a
штука.
very, very important thing,
Можете не знать, как сделать так, чтобы
because
ее составление, но вы
you
должны знать, что получится в итоге.
should know what you should get.
Содержание изначально раскроете не только
And if
наименование разделов, но и что
you describe upfront not just the section titles, but what they should contain, with all the exceptions
может не сделать
and all the situations whereby your contractor may fail to produce a section. Remember, we have
так, чтобы можно было сделать и технический
various types of documentation,
проект одновременно.
a technical project and a working project, and you've got to describe both. You've got to think of all the exceptions that might come up.
Можете сразу приложить
If you can,
образцы того, что вы хотите
you also want to provide samples of what you want to get, because you can do a lot of explanation of what you want to get and still get not quite what you wanted. If you provide a sample, if you provide a template,
для
it's going to be easier for you.
документации, которая не обязательно появляется по итогам ваших
The documentation that is not mandatory
содержаться, напишите
and you don't understand what will be there,
такая документация.
you want to write how this documentation should be put together. If you have works, please offer them a table for them to describe
Этапов выполнения работ.
what level of detail they need as they described a particular stage of the work.
Но не придумайте велосипед за ваших подрядчиков.
But please do not reinvent the wheel for your contractors. Maybe they could do it much better than you think.
О системном подходе.
Also remember about
У вас должны нумероваться
a systems approach.
документы.
How should your documents be numbered, and what should be the naming convention? What should be the hierarchy in your documents? Remember, security should help. And what's the benefit of a set of policies that doesn't map to your overall concept and doesn't reflect what you have done in reality? That would certainly be paper security, and you don't want that. Remember about links and references, because you will have to work with this documentation. And if you have simply a process description is shown in figure X on page Y, you would be having a hard time to flip the pages to that particular page. You
Одну
want to have
сразу переходите к
a
нужному.
link and a backlink, and then by just clicking that link, you would
Подрядчиков каждый
go to the right place. Remember, that is important. If you have a lot of contractors, everyone does it their own way. And remember, you should have a single glossary of terms. Remember who should approve your documentation, who should coordinate it. Do you have 5 subcontractors or 20 subcontractors? Some say that it should be a working mechanism,
а про это ни сном, ни духом.
and all other subcontractors don't know about it. But when they sign it and they thus acknowledge it, they would certainly take this into account. Format. The format is also important. How would you get that? Is it going to be electronically? Is it going to be on paper? Would you get it as editable text with hyperlinks, or the PDF that you wouldn't be able to modify? Maybe you would want to modify. How many copies do you need? Maybe you need one for your archive and one for yourselves. Maybe you want to take it to your Confluence or elsewhere. What presentation documents will you get? All of that
Это технические
you want to think when you write up those technical requirements.
метрики управления.
The
Говорю про детерминированные,
management metrics. Remember, I told you about
которые вы как должны рассортировать.
deterministic approach. Imagine you have a million
Или насколько
projects. How do you
чем
sort them out?
тем понять.
You want to have a simple table. The simpler, the better. And not just for you, but for your contractors.
Не
It would be manageable. Remember,
финальной метрикой.
what should be your final metric? Would it be labor hours? Would it be labor days? Would it be length? Would it be money? Doesn't matter.
Мерить свои маленькие...
Please come up with a measure that measures your smaller stages. Let me give you an example. If you just have one tender, no stages, nothing, with worth 100 million,
будет в конце.
then your fine for failure to delivery would be a percentage of that. And if you do that for 3 years, then over 3 years, you would never be able to sort out at what point in time things went wrong. So you want to do it bit by bit, piece by piece.
Письма.
It doesn't matter how you kick off the next one, whether it starts with an authorization letter or you have a detailed schedule, but you've got to think about how you manage the timing inside the project. Otherwise, you would find it tough to manage.
Слишком поздно можно обнаружить, что что-то пошло не так.
Because projects are sophisticated and tasks are numerous, and sometimes you find out that things are going wrong a little bit too late. What else can help you? Maybe you want to describe how you will verify,
Или не будете вы проводить пилотные
whether you will do pilots. How would you select a solution? Maybe that would be a thick
сэкономить еще
500-page methodology that would help save you money. How you would do your acceptance tests.
проектов одновременно и
And imagine there's 1 million of projects implemented concurrently. You wouldn't have the people to test everything. Risk hedging.
отдельно.
We'll talk about it separately.
Управление проектом теперь не то, как написать в ТЗ, но
Project management, not just about writing the technical requirements, but how you implement that. Remember the key things that should be there. Who are your allies? How will you communicate with them? And the
я помните, в самом начале говорил,
means and resources that you would have.
RezBez.
And remember, I told you at the beginning, if you don't have the resources, you don't want to go into RezBez. Allies. You can find them
В бухгалтерском учете
even
помогут поставить на учет
whenever you didn't think they would be. If you help accounting, they would be your supporters.
компании.
You have CISOs of other companies. You can test your ideas with them. Community helps.
Есть коллеги в IT,
You have colleagues in IT. If you
айтишники,
don't make friends with IT, you can stop your project. For better or for worse,
которым вы будете бежать,
the IT guys that you would go to, that you would run hand in hand throughout your project. Communication. Think of how many
где
teams
вы задействованы.
should be there. How will they be distributed? How will you
Или вы проводить какие-то управляющие комиссии,
engage the best management? Will you be doing steering committees or other initiatives to keep your team current?
вы будете делать условно проект, к примеру, вы выбрали это делать по частям,
Suppose you choose to do a project in chunks, and then you buy one subsystem and two subsystems, and you're being told, okay, we've run out of money, that's it. How would you guarantee
на всем горизонте проекта
financial coverage throughout
подсистемы или
the project life for your subsystem or system of result-driven cybersecurity? If you don't know
IT
whether you will be able to implement it end-to-end, think twice if you want to go there. IT infrastructure and SCADA is also very important when you think about project management. You may hope that the IT guys would deploy the right operating system for you, but it would turn out that it would take them a year and your RezBez is over. How will you interact with them? It's also a matter of project management. The same applies to SCADA. Importantly, you are a CISO of a large organization. You have 5 people at your disposal, and you think that you can do this. But then it turns out that one person goes on a maternity leave, the other one
классической формулировки стартапа, когда
leaves, and you're left with just 3 people. So think about how you will ensure
проектов.
how will you manage with your resources throughout the project life. Contractors are a separate item. Think about how you're going to manage them, and don't think that your counterparts in the contractor
Входите в проект
would
непонятного
be
времени, у вас есть
competent.
много неопределенности.
When you undertake a lengthy project, there's a lot of uncertainty.
Как прописать технически,
What you certainly shouldn't overlook.
варьироваться за это время.
How do you
Персонала,
write in the technical requirements the variable things, the number of servers, the number of people? What would you do with new objects. What would you do if your servers change, if your operating system changes, if your catalog service will be Russian-made? Your email system, how would you ensure your RezBez during transition? How would you do procurement of your software? And there's a thing which is called non-fixed price. When you say that the value of your software will be not more than X, and then you come up with a methodology, and you don't know what exactly software you're going to have. Maybe your antivirus will be from one provider or the other, with the spider one or the green one. What would you do if a particular solution is not available? What would be your final outcome, and how much work you would need? You need to describe all of that in the technical requirements. You need to describe your final stage, and your contractor should understand it. Risks. Well, you can't not talk about risks. Let's think of what risks you might have. Contractor side. Very straightforward. What would you do if they fail to deliver on time? What would you do if you need to terminate with them? What would you do if they fail? What would you do if remote access gets blocked? Or what if you run out of money? How would you terminate? Externally, the regulators change their requirements. Order 17 has been modified, and you have been working to meet the previous version. What would you do if taxation changes and you would have to pay 20% more for your software? All of those risks should certainly be there in your technical requirements or in the contract.
Здесь самое важное действительно не паниковать.
An important thing is not to panic.
Ну и самый главный ответ жизни и Вселенной.
And the most important answer in the universe, whether we will get to RezBez. Indeed, it's 42.
Означает полный абсурд во всей этой идее.
Which
как его задавать?
Means
действительно правильный вопрос.
That it's all about formulating the right question, and it is whether we really want to achieve that RezBez. If you want to include in your technical requirements and your contract what I've described to you in my 20 slides, then I'm confident that you will get there. But I think that you will be asking different questions. I think that you will be able to find this most important question in the universe for yourselves, and importantly, you will answer the question of why do you need to go there. Okay, thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, I have a few minutes to answer them now.
А вот и Виктор.
And here's Victor.
Роман, спасибо большое за доклад.
Roman, thank you for your presentation.
Может, у кого-то вопросы?
Colleagues, do you have any questions?
Да.
Что же вы за люди-то?
У меня тоже будет вопрос потом.
I have a question too.
Да. Раз. Спасибо за доклад.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. Very interesting one.
Он такой не
I understand that the journey to RezBez is quite a challenging one, quite a bumpy one. But what's the alternative? Integration.
По функциональным требованиям лучший в мире.
We buy the best product and then we implement it iteratively over a long time. And when we implement the very last element, we'll start from the beginning because everything would get obsolete. And how it interacts with everything else, well, it's up to you to think about.
Да, коллеги, еще у кого-нибудь вопрос есть?
Any other questions?
Понятно, что мировой опыт для нас, наверное, не очень...
I understand that international experience is not quite relevant for us, but the situation with RezBez, with an outcome-driven contract, how different is our practice from international practice, from your experience? When Alexei Lukatsky started working for all countries of the world, they immediately understood the need to do RezBez as well. So
Проблема в том, что ее формализовать
Globally,
с точки зрения
a result-driven methodology exists not only with us, but other methodologies are difficult to implement under our current legislation, because we can be telling good stories from the stage that will
страхуемся.
secure or insure everyone from cyber risks, but when you
Какая-то
tell them, okay, yes, please insure us, we are happy to give you 10,000 for you to
исполнителей, пока мы бежим туда. А кто нам даст
pay us if there is a claim?
100 миллионов баблосов, которые нужно интегрировать для того, чтобы вот это...
Who would give us the 100 million software to integrate so that the risk didn't materialize? Well, it's tough. The more you think of how to formulate it in the technical requirements, the more restrictions you come up with.
Разница между
I
госрегулированием,
don't know
потому что оно меняется от страны к стране, но
if there's a difference in the government regulation, because every country has its own, but everyone wants to get there, because people understand that a pen test is good, but sometimes it doesn't reflect the reality, because it was done the way it's written in the technical requirements, and it's not necessarily that they looked through all that there was, they only looked up the first vector. Okay, so does this mean that we have our own unique way?
это не плата от него защиты и аппаратный модуль доверенной загрузки. У нас далеко не свой
No.
путь в RezBez. И
No, it's not that we have a unique way.
уважаемые заокеанские коллеги точно думают о том,
Our overseas
важнее того, как он был сделан,
counterparts
давно. Просто
have always, for a long time, have
называется
been thinking that the result is more important than the method with which you achieve it. It's just that we are quite late to the game, and we have some national-specific context, so to say, in how we implement it. Well, thank you for a very interesting and practical presentation. I have a couple of questions. Information technology is technology. Information security is technology, but it's also people and processes.
Тоже надо описывать и не забыть.
And regarding the process and people, what do we need to describe in the technical requirements?
Что для
And then on the technology side,
классного
what makes a difference between a good vendor that is helpful and a not so good vendor?
как это по очереди, то, что было уже год назад с мной сказано,
Okay,
но тем не менее, по процессу
a year ago,
вы вдруг вбегаете
I
в RezBez,
talked about this a little bit, but let me recap. When you go to RezBez, you always have this set: processes, technology, and people.
потому что еще наши уважаемые руководители страны начала прошлого столетия
Our leadership in early last century said that people who don't know how to deal with technology
потому что если люди и обладают,
cannot deliver the necessary effect. If people know how to use technology, the results will be there.
микроскопом, в принципе,
If you use technology
вы хотите,
not the way it was intended, then you can use a microscope to drive nails.
гарантировался какой-то результат,
So if you want
вообще никто не мешает описывать процесс
a system-oriented approach,
в SOAR, в SGRC, в любой
you can describe processes and you implement them in SOAR, in another system, and to add to those processes the technology and the people
в найме или используются как сторонние подрядчики.
that you hire or that you use as external contractors.
Ну, действительно сложно.
Without all of this, it's going to be tough.
Учитывать активы,
We can keep saying that we should take stock of assets,
бизнес-владельцы информации,
take account of assets, but unless you write how you do that and your IT and your security are involved in that, you wouldn't get a good stock take. If there are no processes, there's no result. That's quite straightforward. What was your second question? Oh, a good and a bad vendor.
классика.
Okay,
Как только у вас
let's take a classic example. Whenever you
после происходящего какого-то большого
address
начинается,
a vendor's support after a major
когда вендор говорит, не-не-не, ребята,
failure,
продукт
the
отличный,
vendor starts pointing fingers. The vendor says that we have a good product, but your experts operate it not the way it's written in the manual. And if they do operate it the way it's written in the manual, they would say,
Это интегратор.
that
Он неправильно внедрил. Интегратор есть.
it is the integrator's fault. They didn't deliver it well. The integrator says, no, I did deliver it well, but at design, because of your product, there were some issues. And so this finger pointing is a problem.
Мониторинг инфраструктуры,
Or
который, не дай бог, случился инцидент.
if there's a service provider that does infrastructure monitoring and then has been an InfoSec incident, they would say, yes, we have a contract, we do monitoring for this contract, but you know, we only cover 20% of the infrastructure and the incident happens over there. So we have nothing to do with it. We have told them a couple of times, let's get together and do it the right way, but they didn't want to do it. So a stupid question arises. Why? So for me, a good vendor is one that can write the technical requirements that should clearly explain how their product should use in RezBez, who is capable of designing how to make sure that it's used and operated that way in your IT infrastructure. They would also make sure that it's implemented in the right way, observing best practices. And when, as they do the audit of completion, they would make sure that it was done to the specification. I had a great conversation with a major vendor, a really big vendor, and we discussed that we'll have a particular closed segment which would contain products from only one vendor who could do a turnkey solution. So there's no opportunity to point a finger to anyone else. What would happen if they designed everything, they supplied the product, they implemented the product, and then they get hacked? So what would happen if that happens? Well, the answer is quite straightforward, that the product and the vendor are not quite good. But the vendor somehow didn't like it. Maybe because they believe that their products are top-notch. But if you have partners who can guarantee the outcome, then it's a good vendor. If all they do is sell you the box and then it's up to you, and you are left alone with it, and their support would tell you that you didn't hit the right buttons, then it's not a good vendor.
Еще есть вопрос?
Any other questions?
Я один только вот.
I'll ask just one.
Результативная кибербезопасность.
Okay, result-oriented
Вот при внедрении
security.
Почта России ощутила уже какие-то результаты?
When you implemented the methodology, did the Russian Post experience the real outcomes from that security implementation? And how much time would it take for a company to really feel the good results of security measures? Well, the cycle is 6 to 12 months, and that's if you're lucky, if you have all the funding in place. And appreciating the results, it's difficult to measure. Well, understanding the problem is what we probably already have. We understand at least how deep is the rabbit hole.
Которые есть в компании.
Опять-таки, наверное, сильно повезло.
Well, I think
Я описывал союзников.
I'm lucky. I talked about allies. In our organization, everyone from the CEO understands the importance of information security for what we do. We understand that information security is an important building block that helps our customers feel more secure because we care about our customers. Because in the area of personal data protection, we cover almost the full nation, and we among them have people who come from socially unprotected.
Поэтому здесь нет проблем донести до лиц, принимающих решения.
So we don't have an issue to communicate the importance of information security. The difficulty is to understand the scale of uncertainty while we move to implementation. Thank you very much. That was Roman Shapiro, CISO of Russian Post. Let's put our hands together for him.
Друзья, спасибо, что провели целый день на таком замечательном треке.
Friends, thank you for spending your full day here at this track, CISO School.
Эмоциональным он получился про людей, что очень здорово, не только
It turned out to be quite emotional. It turned out to be about people, not just about technology.
наши доклады.
Thank you for being with us.